Hey everybody, welcome into Folklore and Flourish. You're here with Jane, Mark, and Molly. It is June 20th over at Blue Box 29. And we are in week 3, the transformation of our month with heroes and quests. We are with the archetype of the Pathfinder. So our person going through the stories is our Pathfinder this month. It's kind of fun because like the person in the image that's like going through all this stuff, in the pictures, it's just the traveler. It's us, it's a person following the story. So that's kind of cool. If you look at all the images and then eventually when I get it in just an image book
Right.
to look at them. But the topic and theme for today is the power. Okay, so our theme is awakening potential, our power. And the lesson is that power humbles and elevates. I think that sometimes we forget that we are allowed to elevate ourselves.
Mhm.
We don't need to always be humble, rise into our potential, rise into our power. We see that in Hindu, Egyptian, Mongol, and Roman folklore today. And it's fun because today is one of those days where we see a little bit more branches of folklore. And as silly as it may sound, some of these figures are historical figures.
Right.
There's actually a record of them, maybe not doing what they're doing, but they're legends.
Mhm.
They're elevated, their stories elevated a little bit, a little bit more dramatized and all this stuff. That's a different branch of folklore. We usually hit myths more than anything.
Right.
Um, but today we get to see a legend, and there's a little bit of a distinction there because this legend actually has a historical figure in it today. So that's
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah.
So we get to see that. I'm hoping as the year goes round, we get to see some more like tall tales, because like some other examples are like tall tales, fables, fairy tales. Those
Mhm.
are different kinds of folklore too. But hopefully, but if not, we can always do those later. Nursery rhymes.
Right, yeah. Yeah, we can always throw that in. Side quest sides, doing stuff
Yeah.
and
And just doing, I know I really want to have my mom like interview my mom on nursery rhymes and like
mm,
have her like show and tell.
that would be really cool
Like
to,
if she had a presentation and then we're like showing that and like,
right. Yeah, because we can do it on the go, we don't have to do the podcast in here. It just this would be better for when you're doing the personal sit-down interview or just we could set it up anywhere, I
well,
guess.
yeah, I should just ask her if she wants to.
Yeah, that'd be
So
fun.
it'd be a
I'm
great
sure they
teaching opportunity.
the person sitting right there would love to hear it, so
Yeah, well, I have that Mother Goose book out there. All the sticky notes, those are her sticky notes. She used to
Oh,
like do, I remember when I was in 5th grade, she was an admin at a different school
mhm.
or teacher, maybe still. But she came down as like a guest teaching
Mhm.
to just teach us of nursery rhymes and their real
Oh,
meanings and
wow.
stuff.
That's really cool. That
Yeah,
would be a
like Humpty
fun
Dumpty was a
episode.
person and the wall was his horse,
Mm,
fell off his horse like the king did.
right.
And then like ashes, ashes, we all fall down. You get to see that it's more in the plagues. Folklore is very dark in all these aspects,
Yeah, all these
but
fun, cute little nursery rhymes were not.
it's also heavy lessons. Like I love
Mhm.
folklore as it was when it was. I really wish I could. And if anyone knows anyone, go see actual like elders within their communities and cultures telling these stories how they were told, in the
Yeah,
cultures like uniquely because you don't fit it to accommodate to today's society,
right.
whatever that may be. It's this is a deep rooted lesson that it doesn't matter what politics, left, right, anything like that. It's as humanity. This
Yeah.
is what we're doing and this is who we are.
Mm,
And it could apply to either way. It can apply to any time frame. And so while folklore can be dark, I think it's usually in the darker actual tellings of things that there's more honesty in the
yeah.
reality of things. The more that we acknowledge dark things happen and help each other through them and help each other to avoid seeing the darkness in other people's lives, the better off that we will be, because it doesn't do any good to avoid it. It's not like, oh, if you think about darkness, it'll happen. No, it's out there, but it feels alone. And that's why it keeps spreading into more darkness and they connect and all this. So, Sometimes we got to just say, this is how the world is. This is what we learned from it. This is what we can do from it. This is how we can come together to prevent it.
I think in that darkness, though, look at it kind of like that video we were watching earlier, is look at it as a teacher.
Hmm.
Look at it as a positive. There's a reason it's there for you. It's doing something for you and your soul and your ascension.
Well, the darkness is required.
Yeah.
Like if you look at it in a lot of different ways, and we saw part of, and I don't know if it's the same video you were talking about, but rest is part of the cycle. Rest isn't like, oh, I'm not doing anything anymore. I'm
Mhm.
like backing up. I'm not growing forward. I'm not elevating myself. Rest is part of that. The
Mhm.
dark is an essential aspect for us because it forces us to slow down.
Exactly.
That's why, like in summertime, when we want to move more, we're doing more, we're more active in the warmer months. We have more sun, but there still is it's time to rest, recharge, but we don't need as much.
Right.
The earth is more alive, it's more active right now. It doesn't need as much rest either. But darkness isn't always, like that essential thing. Sometimes darkness is just loneliness,
Mm.
you know, social isolation. I told you that the other day.
Yeah.
We sometimes we create a monster in somebody
Yeah.
because we socially isolate them. And that's hard because as a species, we're not meant to be socially isolated.
Right.
I mean, you work in the prison system and I mean, I would assume that keeping people in solitary, it's a mind
Yeah.
punishment. It's a
And
psychological
actually, you're
punishment.
not even allowed to do it anymore. It's been changed. The laws have.
Did that
I
change
think a
while you've
lot of
been
it.
in corrections?
Some of it has, yes. Some of it's definitely lessened since I've been within the department federally, so it has changed. Going in the right direction. I think there's a lot more. I think the whole system totally needs to be wiped, rethought, but that's a whole discussion for another time.
That'd be really
Yeah.
interesting, actually. So we'll do that. But today we are thinking about our awakening potential. Okay. So we have different phases within our life. This isn't a one time thing. There are
Mhm.
lots of different moments where we awaken potential within ourselves. But we're really elevating ourselves, humbling ourselves, and elevating ourselves with our power today. And with our 4 stories, we are going to think, what did I awaken? And we are going to stand with our arms open and extended. So we're kind of in that power stance, that
Mm.
broadened shoulder, that wide, the open. Yeah, feels weird when you stretch your hands, but it also feels really good when your
Uh,
whole body is stretched like that.
Especially like in the sun, that's one of my favorite things to do is just open up as wide as I can in
So
front of the
that's what we
sun.
are going to do. We are going to be
Yeah.
outside, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the sun, but
Mhm.
open to the sky. Okay. So
Okay.
the sky in general, but we're going to hold that stance and then kind of just really hold steady breathing.
Mm.
So I can't remember what the termage is in yoga with some of that because it's like the sun salutations when you do that full opening up.
Mm.
We did that when we went to Baker. And like I said, you can feel it when you're doing it.
Right.
You can feel the energy like starting to wake up and your body. And so, I mean, you can do yoga stuff with any of these too, but specifically feel your breathing,
Mm.
spend some cycle it, spend a cycle or two. It's kind of standing. But with that, today for June 20th, we're going to acknowledge the power that has emerged within us and commit to wielding it with intention. So, wielding our power with intention. And with that, see you guys tomorrow.
See you guys. Love you.
Okay. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1. Hanuman's Strength. Long ago, when the forests of India were filled with sages, kings, and wandering spirits, there lived a Vanara named Hanuman, whose destiny would become known throughout the world. Though he is remembered as one of the greatest heroes in the Ramayana, Hanuman's remarkable strength first revealed itself when he was still a child. One morning, as the young Hanuman awoke beneath the golden light of dawn, he looked into the sky and saw the rising sun. Its brilliant glow appeared to him not as a distant celestial body, but as a ripe and shining fruit hanging in the heavens. Filled with wonder and curiosity, he decided he would leap into the sky and claim it. With a mighty bound, Hanuman launched himself upward. He soared above forests, rivers, and mountains, climbing ever higher toward the blazing orb. The winds rushed around him, yet his strength carried him onward. As he approached the sun, the gods watched in astonishment. Never before had they seen a child attempt such a feat. The sun god, Surya, recognized the young Vanara's innocence and did not wish him harm. Yet the balance of the cosmos was threatened by Hanuman's reckless journey. Seeing the child racing toward the heavens, Indra, king of the gods, feared disaster. Mounting his great elephant, Airavata, he flew into the sky and confronted the young hero. When Hanuman refused to turn back, Indra hurled his thunderbolt. The weapon struck the child and sent him tumbling toward the earth below. He fell upon a mountainside, injured and unconscious. Witnessing this, Vayu, the wind god and Hanuman's divine father, was overcome with grief. In his sorrow, he withdrew the winds from the world. Soon, all living creatures began to suffer. Without air, neither humans nor animals could survive. The gods quickly realized the consequence of their actions and gathered together to restore harmony. They approached Vayu and promised that Hanuman would not only recover, but would be blessed with extraordinary gifts. One by one, the gods granted their boons. Brahma bestowed protection from many forms of harm. Indra softened the effects of his thunderbolt and granted resilience beyond ordinary measure. Surya promised wisdom and knowledge. Other gods offered courage, speed, endurance, and strength that would surpass that of nearly every living being. When Hanuman awakened, the world breathed once more. Yet as he grew older, the sages placed a gentle curse upon him so that he would forget the full extent of his powers until the time came when they were truly needed. Many years later, during the quest to rescue Sita, Hanuman would be reminded of his hidden abilities and rise to become one of the greatest heroes in all of Hindu tradition. Story 2. The Eye of Horus. In the time when the gods ruled Egypt, Osiris was king over the land. He taught humanity the arts of agriculture, justice, and civilization, bringing order wherever he traveled. His brother Set, however, grew envious of Osiris's power and beloved reputation. Consumed by jealousy, Set plotted against him and ultimately seized the throne through treachery and violence. After the death of Osiris, his wife, Isis, hid herself and her young son, Horus, from Set's wrath. Deep within the marshes of the Nile Delta, she raised the child in secret. There, Horus grew strong beneath his mother's protection, learning wisdom, patience, and the responsibilities that awaited him. Though many years passed, Horus never forgot the fate of his father or the throne that had been stolen. When Horus reached adulthood, he emerged from hiding and challenged Set for the right to rule Egypt. The dispute was not settled in a single battle. Instead, the struggle stretched across many contests and confrontations, drawing the attention of the gods themselves. Sometimes Horus prevailed, and sometimes Set gained the advantage, but neither was willing to surrender. During one fierce encounter, the conflict reached a terrible climax. Set attacked Horus with great fury, and in the violence of the struggle, Horus lost one of his eyes. The injury was devastating. The eye, which had represented sight, perception, and wholeness, was shattered and broken. Set believed the wound would end his rival's claim forever. Yet the story did not end there. The god Thoth, master of wisdom, writing, and sacred knowledge, came to Horus's aid. Using divine power, he gathered the scattered pieces of the damaged eye and restored them. Through healing and restoration, the eye became whole once again. The recovered eye was thereafter known as the Wadjet, or Eye of Horus. The restored eye carried profound significance. Horus offered it to his father Osiris as a sacred gift, and through that offering, Osiris gained renewed strength in the realm of the dead. The act demonstrated devotion, sacrifice, and the triumph of restoration over destruction. The eye itself became a powerful symbol recognized throughout Egypt. In time, Horus's claim was acknowledged by the assembled gods. Set's reign came to an end, and Horus assumed his rightful place as ruler. Throughout Egypt, images of the Eye of Horus appeared upon temples, jewelry, tombs, and protective amulets. People believed it represented healing, protection, wisdom, and the restoration of what had once been broken. Story 3: The Birth of Genghis Khan. Long before he became known as Genghis Khan, ruler of the vast Mongol Empire, he was a child named Temujin, born upon the windswept grasslands of the Mongolian steppe. The stories surrounding his birth were remembered for generations, for many believed signs had appeared from the very beginning that his destiny would be unlike that of ordinary men. According to tradition, Temujin's father, Yasuge, was a respected tribal leader whose people traveled across the endless plains with their horses, sheep, and cattle. Life upon the steppe was harsh and demanded strength, endurance, and resilience. Tribes competed for resources, alliances shifted like the wind, and survival often depended upon courage and loyalty. It was into this world that Temujin entered. The tale tells that when the child was born, the woman attending his mother noticed something remarkable. Clutching tightly within the infant's fist was a dark red cloth of blood. Among the Mongols, such a sign was considered extraordinary. Elders and warriors who heard of it interpreted the omen as evidence that the child would one day become a powerful leader and warrior whose influence would stretch far beyond the homeland. As Temujin grew, however, his early years did not resemble the life of a future conqueror. His father was poisoned by enemies when the boy was still young, leaving the family vulnerable and alone. The tribe that had once followed Yasuge abandoned his widow and children, forcing them to survive without protection. Hunger became a constant companion. During harsh winters and difficult seasons, the family lived by gathering roots, hunting small animals, and relying upon whatever the land could provide. Yet the hardships that might have broken another person instead forged Temujin's character. He learned to endure suffering without surrendering to it. He learned the value of loyalty from those who remained beside him when the others departed. Most importantly, he learned that power was not simply inherited through birth, but earned through perseverance, leadership, and the ability to unite people toward a common purpose. As the years passed, Temujin gradually gathered companions and allies. Some were childhood friends, while others were warriors drawn by his courage and determination. Together, they overcame rival tribes, escaped enemies who sought to destroy them, and built alliances that steadily increased his influence. The child whose birth had been marked by an unusual omen slowly grew into the leader foretold by the stories. Later generations looked back upon the tale of the blood clot in Temujin's hand as a symbol of awakening potential. Whether understood as destiny, prophecy, or legend, the story reflected the belief that greatness often reveals itself not through comfort or privilege, but through the ability to overcome adversity and transform hardship into strength. Story 4: Mars Blesses the Warrior. In the early days of Rome, the people honored Mars as one of their most important gods. Though later generations often remembered him primarily as a god of war, the ancient Romans also associated him with strength, courage, discipline, and the protection of the community. Stories told around hearths and temples spoke of warriors who sought his favor before setting out to defend their people. One such tale concerns a young Roman warrior preparing to leave his home for the first time. Though he had trained with spear and shield since childhood, he had never faced the uncertainty of battle. As the day of departure approached, he found himself torn between determination and fear. The glory spoken of by veterans seemed distant when compared to the reality of danger that awaited beyond the city's walls. On the evening before the army marched, the young warrior climbed a hill overlooking the countryside. The setting sun bathed in the fields. the setting sun bathed the fields in red and gold, and the distant sounds of the city drifted upward on the evening breeze. There he offered a prayer to Mars, asking not for victory or wealth, but for the strength to fulfill his duty honorably. As darkness settled across the land, the warrior remained upon the hill. The old stories say that Mars heard the prayer. Whether the god appeared in physical form or through a vision remains uncertain, for different versions tell the event differently. Yet all agree that the young man experienced a powerful encounter. Before him stood a figure radiating strength and authority, clad in armor that seemed forged from fire and sunlight. The warrior expected promises of conquest and triumph. Instead, Mars spoke of responsibility. He told the young man that true power was not measured by the ability to dominate others, but by the ability to master oneself. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act rightly despite it. Strength was not granted so that others could be oppressed, but so that those unable to defend themselves might be protected. When dawn arrived, the vision faded, but its lessons remained. Warrior marched with his companions and faced many hardships in the years that followed. Battles were fought, victories won, and losses endured. Through each trial, he remembered the wisdom he had received. Though his reputation eventually grew among his fellow soldiers, he became known less for acts of aggression than for discipline, fairness, and steadfast leadership. In later years, storytellers remembered the encounter as a reminder that power is most meaningful when guided by wisdom. The blessing of Mars was not simply the gift of strength, it was the understanding of how strength should be used. That lesson, they said, transformed an ordinary warrior into a leader worthy of respect. Daily thread for June 20th, the power. Power is one of the most misunderstood forces in human experience. Many people imagine it as something external: strength, authority, influence, status, knowledge, or the ability to shape events according to one's will. Yet the stories passed down through generations often suggest that true power begins long before any outward achievement is visible. It awakens quietly through character, discipline, resilience, and the discovery of abilities that may have remained hidden for years. Potential exists within every person, but potential alone accomplishes nothing. It must be recognized, developed, and guided with wisdom. The ancient storytellers understood that power without humility becomes destructive, while power paired with purpose can elevate both the individual and the community. Throughout life, people are often given glimpses of what they might become. Yet those moments are only invitations. Growth requires effort, sacrifice, and the willingness to accept responsibility for the gifts one possesses. Strength is not measured solely by what a person can achieve, but by how they choose to use what they have been given. The most respected heroes of myth are rarely remembered because they possess great powers alone. They are remembered because they learned when to act, when to restrain themselves, and how to place their abilities in service of something greater than personal gain. Across cultures and centuries, the lesson remains remarkably consistent. Awakening potential is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of it. The moment a person discovers their power is also the moment they must decide what kind of person they will become. What did I awaken?